tariffs, export controls, chip restrictions, investment bans, technology sanctions, diplomatic tensions, military exercises around Taiwan. It often feels like the world suddenly entered a new Cold War. For decades, many believed China's rise was temporary, built on cheap labor and low-cost manufacturing. But today, the world's second-largest economy is competing with the United States not only in trade, but in artificial intelligence, semiconductors, space technology, and global influence. A country that was once among the poorest on Earth now builds more high-speed rail than the rest of the world combined, produces more engineers than any other nation, manufactures everything from toys to advanced electric vehicles to increasingly sophisticated artificial intelligence. For years, American presidents have tried different ways to slow that rise, in different styles, with different rhetoric. Yet, remarkably, one thing has stayed almost exactly the same. Washington increasingly sees China not as a partner, but as its greatest strategic competitor. So, how did this happen? How did a country devastated by foreign invasion, civil war, and widespread poverty transform into one of the most powerful nations on Earth in just a few decades? This story is about two very different ways of thinking about power, history, and time itself. To understand the future of the 21st century, we first have to understand how China learned to play the long game. To understand today's rivalry, we need to stop thinking like news reporters and start thinking like historians. Most political debates begin with the latest election, or the latest speech, or the latest headline. History begins much earlier. Long before the United States existed, long before the Roman Empire collapsed, Chinese states were already developing bureaucracies. Standardized writing, massive irrigation systems, and sophisticated philosophies of government. Dynasties rose, dynasties collapsed, yet one idea survived almost every upheaval. China viewed itself not merely as another kingdom, but as the center of civilization. Foreign powers existed, but traditionally, they were seen as living beyond the civilized world. This worldview shaped Chinese politics for centuries. Then, everything changed. Imagine waking up one morning, believing your civilization is among the greatest on Earth, and within decades, foreign armies occupy your cities, force open your ports, dictate your trade, seize your territory, and tell you there is nothing you can do about it. Between the First Opium War in 1839 and the founding of the People's Republic in 1949, China experienced something historians now call the Century of Humiliation. Britain, France, Russia, Germany, Japan. One after another, foreign powers extracted concessions from a civilization that had once believed itself untouchable. Hong Kong was ceded, ports were opened by force, foreign soldiers marched through Beijing, millions suffered famine, rebellion, invasion. For many Western countries, these events belong to history books. For modern China, they remain part of national memory. Every Chinese student grows up learning about this period, not simply as history, but as a warning. Never again should China become weak enough for others to decide its future. This idea may be the single most important key to understanding modern China. But remembering humiliation is one thing. Becoming powerful again is another. That transformation would require a leader willing to change almost everything. His name was Deng Xiaoping. In 1978, China faced a choice. Continue following the revolutionary path of Mao Zedong, or reinvent itself entirely. The man who chose the second path was not a charismatic revolutionary. He wasn't a gifted orator. He rarely appeared larger than life. Yet few leaders have transformed a nation more profoundly than Deng Xiaoping. When Deng took power, China was astonishingly poor. The average Chinese citizen earned only a fraction of what people in developed countries did. Millions still lived in rural villages. Modern industry was limited. Foreign investment was almost non-existent. And despite its enormous population, China remained largely isolated from the global economy. Deng understood something many ideologues refused to accept. Pride alone could not make a nation powerful. Factories could, technology could, education could, wealth could. There's a famous saying often attributed to Deng Xiaoping. It doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice. Whether or not he used those exact words in every retelling, the philosophy behind them became unmistakable. Ideology mattered less than results. Instead of asking, is this policy capitalist or socialist? Deng asked, will it make China stronger? Then came one of the boldest economic experiments in modern history. Along China's southern coast, the government designated a handful of places as special economic zones. These zones would become laboratories. Foreign companies were invited to invest, taxes were reduced, regulations were relaxed. Chinese workers suddenly gained access to global markets. One of these places was a fishing village called Shenzhen. In 1980, it had fewer than 60,000 residents. Today, it is home to well over 17 million people. It has become one of the world's leading centers for electronics, software, robotics, and artificial intelligence. The transformation happened within a single lifetime. History rarely moves that quickly. But China's rise wasn't built by China alone. Ironically, it was accelerated by the very countries that would later see China as their greatest competitor. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, companies across North America, Europe, Japan, and later South Korea searched for lower production costs. China offered something almost no other country could match: a massive labor force, improving infrastructure, political stability, and a government determined to become the world's manufacturing powerhouse. Factory after factory relocated production: clothing, toys, furniture, electronics. Over time, an extraordinary phrase entered everyday life: Made in China. At first, this seemed like a win for everyone. Consumers enjoyed lower prices. Companies earned larger profits. China created millions of jobs. Few imagined that the factories producing inexpensive sneakers today would one day manufacture electric vehicles, satellites, quantum computers, and advanced AI chips. Then came another pivotal moment. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. Many Western leaders believed this would transform China politically as well as economically. The assumption was simple: as China grew wealthier, it would gradually become more like Western democracies. Greater prosperity would naturally lead to greater political openness. But history rarely follows our assumptions. China embraced global markets. It embraced exports. It embraced investment. It embraced technology. But it never abandoned the central role of the Communist Party. Instead, Beijing pursued something unusual: a market economy, operating under the strategic direction of a one-party state. Whether one sees this model as a success, a contradiction, or something entirely different, it undeniably produced one of the fastest episodes of economic growth in human history. Here's where many people misunderstand China's rise. They imagine millions of workers sewing shirts in enormous factories. That image was once accurate, but today, it tells only part of the story. China no longer wants to be known as the world's factory. It wants to become the world's laboratory. Consider this: China now graduates hundreds of thousands of engineers each year. It files vast numbers of patent applications. It leads in electric vehicle production. It has become a major force in renewable energy. And in artificial intelligence, it is investing on a scale few countries can match. The goal is no longer simply to manufacture someone else's inventions. The goal is to create the next generation of inventions itself. This is where the story begins to change. Because while much of the world focused on quarterly profits, election cycles, and the next news headline, China often appeared to be playing a different game. Not a game measured in months or even years, but in decades. When tariffs arrived in 2018, many Americans believed a new economic conflict had suddenly begun. But from Beijing's perspective, this wasn't the beginning of the game. It was simply another move on a board that had been set decades earlier. If China spent 40 years building the world's factory, Why did the United States suddenly decide that factory had become a strategic threat? And more importantly, can tariffs really stop a country that has been planning for decades? Imagine two neighbors. For years, one builds the world's largest workshop. The other becomes the world's biggest customer. One manufactures, the other consumes. One saves, the other borrows. Together, they create one of the most successful economic relationships in history. But relationships built on mutual benefit can also create mutual dependence. By the early 2000s, China wasn't simply exporting products. It was becoming an essential part of nearly every global supply chain. Take a smartphone. Its processor might be designed in California. Its software developed by engineers across several countries. Its camera manufactured in Japan or South Korea. Its specialized equipment supplied by Dutch companies. But final assembly? Very often, China. The same was true for laptops, home appliances, medical equipment, solar panels, toys, furniture, and countless products people use every single day. The world wasn't simply buying from China, the world was building with China. In 2018, President Donald Trump argued that this relationship had become dangerously unbalanced. The United States imported far more goods from China than it exported. American factories had closed. Millions of manufacturing jobs had disappeared over previous decades. And many policymakers believed China had benefited from global trade while not always playing by the same rules. Trump's response was straightforward. Tariffs. Billions of dollars worth of tariffs. The idea was simple. Make Chinese products more expensive. Encourage companies to manufacture elsewhere. Reduce America's dependence on China. Beijing answered with tariffs of its own. The trade war had begun. If this were only about trade, the story would have ended there. Instead, something unexpected happened. The battlefield changed from steel to silicon. If oil defined the 20th century, semiconductors may define the 21st. Every modern technology depends on them. Smartphones, cars, satellites, fighter jets, medical equipment, artificial intelligence, data centers. Whoever designs the most advanced chips gains enormous economic, technological, and military advantages. During the Cold War, nations competed for oil. Today, they increasingly compete for computing power. Artificial intelligence isn't powered by ideas alone. It requires extraordinary amounts of computation, and computation depends on advanced semiconductor chips, which is why the trade war gradually evolved into something much larger. The United States didn't stop with tariffs. It began restricting China's access to the world's most advanced semiconductor technologies. Export controls expanded. High-end AI chips faced tighter rules. Advanced chip-making equipment became increasingly difficult for Chinese companies to obtain. Suddenly, companies that most people had never heard of became central to global politics. A single factory, or a single machine, could influence the balance of technological power between nations. Beijing didn't simply protest, it invested. More research, more engineers, more domestic chip production, more artificial intelligence, more automation, more industrial policy. In many ways, restrictions accelerated one of China's biggest long-term goals, becoming less dependent on foreign technology. This is something history often teaches. Pressure can weaken a rival, or it can motivate them to innovate faster. Semiconductors aren't the only strategic resource. Modern technology also depends on rare earth elements. Despite the name, many of these minerals aren't especially rare. But refining them, rarer, is difficult. They are essential for electric vehicles, wind turbines, smartphones, advanced missiles, and countless other technologies. For years, China has dominated much of the global processing capacity for several of these materials, which means dependence flows in both directions. America depends on China. China depends on global markets. Neither side can simply walk away without paying a significant price. Many people describe today's rivalry as a second Cold War. In some ways, the comparison fits. Two major powers, competing political systems, military rivalry, technological competition. But in one crucial respect, today's world is completely different. During the Cold War, the American and Soviet economies were largely separated. Today, the United States and China remain deeply interconnected. They compete fiercely, yet they also trade, invest, manufacture together, depend on many of the same technologies. It is competition inside interdependence, something history has rarely witnessed on this scale. So perhaps we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, who is winning the trade war? Maybe we should ask, who is preparing more effectively for the next 20 years? Because that's how Beijing increasingly appears to think, not simply about the next quarter or the next election, but the next generation. And that brings us to the deepest question of all. Is China's strategy really unique, or is it rooted in ideas that are thousands of years old? To understand why Beijing often seems willing to endure short-term economic pain for long-term strategic advantage, we need to leave economics behind and enter the world of philosophy. Confucius, legalism, Sun Tzu, because the most important battlefield may not be in the Taiwan Strait or on a factory floor, but in the way two civilizations understand power itself. To many observers, China's decisions can seem puzzling. Why would a government willingly endure slower economic growth, spend enormous amounts on infrastructure, or invest heavily in technologies that may not become profitable for years? Why prioritize projects whose rewards may only be seen decades later? Part of the answer may lie in something deeper than economics. It lies in how a civilization understands time. Every political system has its own clock. In many democracies, political leaders often operate within election cycles. 4 years, 5 years. Policies are frequently judged by how quickly voters feel their effects. That rhythm can encourage responsiveness and accountability. But it can also make very long-term planning more difficult when priorities change from one administration to the next. China operates differently. The Chinese Communist Party is not competing in regular national elections in the same way. That doesn't automatically make its decisions better or worse. But it does create different incentives. Leaders can pursue projects designed to unfold over decades: a railway network, a semiconductor strategy, artificial intelligence, port investments, industrial policy. They are often presented as pieces of a much larger picture. More than 2,500 years ago, a military strategist named Sun Tzu wrote a remarkably short book, barely 13 chapters. Yet it would become one of the most influential works on strategy ever written. The Art of War is often misunderstood as a book about fighting. In reality, much of it is about avoiding unnecessary battles. Sun Tzu argued that the highest form of victory is not destroying your opponent. It is shaping the situation so effectively that open conflict becomes unnecessary. Whether modern Chinese leaders consciously apply Sun Tzu to every policy is impossible to know. History is never that simple. But many analysts have noted that ideas of patience, positioning, and strategic advantage resonate with a tradition that values long-term preparation over immediate confrontation. China's intellectual tradition is not built on one philosopher alone. Confucianism emphasized order, education, and good governance. Legalist thinkers stressed the importance of strong institutions and state capacity. Taoist philosophy often highlighted flexibility rather than force. Different schools sometimes disagreed, yet together they helped shape a civilization that often viewed stability as one of the state's highest responsibilities. The United States emerged from a very different historical experience. Its political culture was shaped by Enlightenment thinkers who emphasized individual liberty, constitutional limits on power, open debate, and competition between institutions. This system has extraordinary strengths. It encourages innovation. It allows governments to be replaced peacefully. It creates space for criticism and public accountability. But it also means strategies can change with elections, shifting public opinion, and changing political coalitions. Neither approach guarantees success. Each comes with trade-offs. And history shows examples of both remarkable achievements and serious failures under different systems. It is tempting to view today's rivalry like a sporting event. America versus China. One winner, one loser. But history rarely works that way. The 21st century may not belong entirely to one nation. It may be shaped by many. Emerging economies. regional powers, new technologies, demographic changes, climate challenges, artificial intelligence. The future could be less about replacing one empire with another, and more about navigating a world where power is distributed differently than before. Every great power believed it had discovered the formula for lasting dominance. Rome, the Spanish Empire, the Dutch Republic, Britain, the United States. Each transformed the world, each appeared unstoppable, none remained at the top forever. Yet, decline is not destiny. Renewal is possible, adaptation is possible, reinvention is possible. History is filled with societies that recovered, innovated, and surprised those who had already written them off. So, is America losing its global dominance? Perhaps. Perhaps not. The answer depends on what we mean by dominance. Military power, economic influence, technological leadership, cultural appeal, innovation, each tells a different story. But maybe that isn't the most interesting question. The more interesting question is this: can a world built around one superpower peacefully adapt to the rise of another? Because history offers examples of both outcomes. Sometimes rising powers and established powers found ways to coexist. Sometimes they did not. The choices made over the next few decades. In Washington, Beijing, Taipei, Brussels, Tokyo, New Delhi, and many other capitals may help determine which path our century follows. History rarely announces when it is turning a page. People living through great transformations almost never realize they are witnessing them. They see isolated events: a tariff, a factory closing, a breakthrough in artificial intelligence, a diplomatic summit, a new semiconductor, a military exercise in a distant sea. Only years later do historians connect those scattered moments into a single story. Perhaps that is exactly where we are today. For centuries, the West often imagined power as a game of chess. Two opponents, a defined board, powerful pieces, decisive battles, victory through the right move at the right moment. Another strategic tradition, often illustrated through the game of Go, imagines something different. Victory is rarely decided by one brilliant attack. It emerges gradually, through patience, position, influence, small advantages accumulated over time. Real life, of course, is neither chess nor Go. Nations do not literally play either game, but the comparison reminds us of something important. The greatest shifts in history are seldom the result of a single battle, a single election, or a single leader. They are shaped by countless decisions made over decades, sometimes generations. So perhaps the real question isn't whether America is losing or whether China is winning. The real question is whether we are watching the rules of the global game change before our eyes. Not the end of the American century, not necessarily the beginning of a Chinese century, but the uncertain beginning of a new chapter in world history. And like every generation before us, we won't truly understand this moment until history has already written its verdict. Empires rise, technologies change, strategies evolve. But history always rewards those who understand that the longest games are rarely won by the loudest moves. They are won by the ones that reshape the board itself.